He said recently, I'm never going to sell the team, and a lot of people were quick to point out, Dan Snyder, never say never. Here's what we do know. The value of this franchise, despite all the turmoil, everything that's been happening behind the scenes, the fact that there hasn't been a winning record in a while either, let alone a Super Bowl, even contention. The value of the franchise has gone up and up and up and up, and it has, Forbes putting this out with the news, Forbes ranks every year the value of every NFL franchise in order. The Washington football team, throughout its various names, has consistently ranked at or near the top of that list. So it was always there, the question of how much would it take. Wisdom, you're one who always says there's a price for everything, right?
There's a price for everything.
You could say you're never going to sell the team, but that price continues to go up, up, and up.
And you know, anytime anybody sells one of these professional franchises, no matter how bad you think it is and how much you think that the organization might not be a representative of your town or your city, or how they're not making the playoffs, or whatever it is you think about that franchise, the value of these professional sports teams, specifically in the National Football League, always seems to go up on a regular basis because it's such an exclusive club. People have no problem wanting to get into that club if they have the financial wherewithal, if they have the backing to do so. So putting it on the market and getting money for it, not an issue. Surprise, maybe a surprise to a lot of people who have been calling for this for a long time, that Dan Snyder is finally willing to get out of the National Football League, Professional Football League business by unloading this team. That may catch some people off guard because, again, this is something that they've been calling for a while, considering the dysfunction and the drama, the dark cloud, if you will, that's been hanging over this franchise.
To be clear, none of this is a done deal, right? This is exploring the option to sell the team. This is bringing in a financial group to work on any potential deal. In the meantime, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter, #GoodDayDC. Let us know what you think as far as if this is a good thing, if this is all your dreams come true, that you've been waiting for the chance for Dan Snyder to sell this team, if it would change your opinion of the team, or if you think it's a terrible idea. Let us know either way, #GoodDayDC. In the meantime, back to the finances of this. A lot of these wheels were put in even further motion back in 2021 when Dan Snyder bought out the minority partners. And a lot of this had to do with the dispute over the name. But by doing so and maintaining 100% of the team, that actually makes it easier for him now to sell the team should he choose to. There is no limit as to what this team could go for. But, for example, the Denver Broncos, the team that was most recently purchased by an investment group that included Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton, that team sold for more than $4.5 billion. Forbes already ranks the Commanders near the top of the value list with a value of more than $5.5 billion. So that essentially would be the starting price for what this sale could potentially be.
All right, we want to bring in superfan Easy Street in right now as we continue to talk about this. And again, this is not a done deal. You have to get all the owner or the majority of the owners on board to co-sign on this for him to be voted out as an owner, or he could just sell the team and just say, I'm out. I'm going to keep it moving. So, Easy, let's ask you, your super fan, season ticket holder, your reaction to this news, if it is true at this point.
Hey, good morning, fellas. Good morning, Wisdom, Steve. I'm so excited, man. I'm excited about this. I think that Steve is on point when he's talking about exactly how much this team is going to go for. I'm thinking, knowing Dan Snyder, this guy has the most expensive beer in the NFL. He's going to want at least $6 billion. Now, keep in mind, I'm not sure I'm just tuning into you guys. We already know that Dan Snyder is going to have some say into exactly who he sells the team to. This is not going to be a decision made by Roger Goodell or anyone else. He is going to have the ability to sell the team to who he wants to sell it to. I'm just glad that it's, that they're reporting that this is finally coming to fruition. I hope they get the deal done as quickly as they possibly can. But I think that we have to look at a couple of things. I think, again, Steve, you are exactly on point. I think that when Dan Snyder came back and decided to own the team 100%, he was setting himself up for today. Because when he owned the team 100%, now he can be able to sell and get 100% of the proceeds. Now, we remember now, when some things were going on in there, that 40% group wanted to give up their shares of the team, he got it. He wanted 100% for a reason. I think that was all part of the deal because he wants to cash out for at least $6 billion.
You have to think easy, and again, and keep in mind, this is all, developing right now. We don't know how much work has already been done behind the scenes.
Right.
Forbes is reporting that there are a number of people that have already been in contact, and you would think so, easy, because this is a team where, if you look at what happened in Tennessee, they just announced their new stadium project down there. Their stadium lease was only up 1 year before the Washington Commanders stadium lease at FedEx Field. They're already well into that process. They've picked a site. They already have the designs. They're ready to break ground and go on that new stadium. We don't even know where a stadium would go around here. So you would think that the conversation has already been going on behind the scenes as to what are we going to do? Because it's not just buying a team, easy. It's buying a team. Whether you buy all that property, the hundreds of acres around FedEx Field that Dan Snyder is also in control of, or, whether you buy the rights to a stadium, land somewhere else, you got a lot of work to do.
Okay, so here's the deal, Stephen. I'm so glad that you brought this up. The land is already there. The old RFK Stadium land is ready and prime for our team to come back to Washington, D.C. And I think that this is what Washington, D.C. wanted to see. And I'm not going to speak for Mayor Bowser or the city council or anyone else, but they were definitely not going to try to give Dan Snyder that land or the money to build a new stadium here in Washington, D.C. But now that he's about to be out, I think this is going to open up a whole door of somebody else to come in, to buy the team, to bring the team back to Washington. At the end of the day, that's what all of us want.
Right. All right, let's bring in Kyle Arrington. Easy, stay put. Let's bring in Kyle Arrington and Tailgate Ted and get their reaction to this. And let's add this to the mix as well. The fact that all these controversies kept happening, the NFL said, okay, Dan Snyder, you're no longer running the team. Let's get your wife, Tanya Snyder, is running the team. Then the congressional hearings, he wasn't available for that, so he had to do it by Zoom while he was off somewhere else doing some other business. It just seems like a lot on top of a lot on top of a lot. And then these owners' meetings, and then they said, okay, all right, well, there may be something in the mix here, but at no point did we ever think that it would come to this quickly. So, Kyle, we'll let you take your first stab at this.
I think it caught, like you guys said, I think the timing of it all caught all of us off guard. There I am, trying to, finish up a workout and everything, and to hear the breaking news of it. But it's also not surprising, just given all the, as you guys kind of aforementioned, the allegations, especially when you alienate a lot of the other owners, probably the majority of the other owners in the league. Like I said, between the allegations and losing all type of partnerships, nobody also wants to associate their name, with the Commanders. So I mean, all the writing on the wall was for this to happen, but something must have materialized almost overnight for it to happen this soon.
Kyle, as a player, how much of this outside noise, as we'll call it, the rumors that are constantly circulating, the investigations that have been going on Capitol Hill, any of the questioning behavior that has been going on? I know as a player you try to separate yourself from that, but does that so-called noise blend in to affect the players at all? Might this have any impact on the game itself, or can you completely separate that aspect of it?
So one thing, always preached is talking about compartmentalization. You have to be able to compartmentalize. And, the players were all professionals, players, coaches alike. But I mean, that's easier said than done sometimes, because all the constant outside noise. This has got to be unprecedented just over the past several years. No team has never, been through, franchise organizations, never been through this many off the field stories, allegations, and problems as this Washington Commanders team has. And when you're constantly thinking about things off the field rather than on the field, especially you're a player or coach, I mean, it plays an impact. It plays its toll definitely at some point. It's just a lot.
Kyle, hang tight for a second. I want to get Ted's opinion on this because, Ted, as we know, starts out as a super fan. But, Ted, you've taken it to the next level because you're one of those fans that really works with the organization. They get feedback from you. You get feedback from them. You're able to work collectively, which was the whole idea of having fans work with the front office. You've probably had more contact with the Snyders than anybody else that we have talked to. Did you see this coming at this point?
No. I had no idea that this was coming, and I actually saw Mr. Snyder last week when I was at the stadium for a meeting with some of the merchandise and marketing. And the only thing I thought of when this came out was, is the Mary Jo White report coming soon? Is this to get ahead of that? And this is me speculating. I have no idea if that is the case, but as a fan of this team, you always wonder when the other shoe is about to drop. And hearing this news, and every statement that's come out from the team before this ended with, we're not going to sell. When the Jim Irsay comments came out, we're not going to sell. But Adam Schefter is a huge, I guess, mouthpiece for the franchise, and he retweeted the statement they made. And in his statement, it says, the Commanders announced that Tanya and Dan Snyder have hired Bank of America Securities to explore the sale of the franchise. Because I think they need money, and they're selling minority pieces to build a stadium because no one wants to actually give them money to build a stadium. But when Schefter put that out, this seems like more than that to me.
Yeah. Obviously, we're still trying to put all the pieces together, and this is, at this point, can't confirm anything more than an exploratory option here to get some type of financial involvement to see where this goes from here. Ted, how much do you think, you mentioned Jim Irsay's comment. This, I think, caught a lot of people off guard at the owners' meeting, right? Because there had been speculation behind the scene, there have been rumors, there have been rumblings that there were owners that were not happy with Dan Snyder. There are owners that don't all get along. We know that. We've known that forever. But when Jim Irsay came out and he made those comments publicly for the first time, and even Jerry Jones made comments that didn't necessarily disagree with that, which came as a surprise, I think, to a lot of people as well. How much did that Jim Irsay statement make potentially, or at least in your opinion, as to the news we're hearing today?
Hearing the Irsay comment and knowing that it came from Irsay, someone that has basically no skeletons in his closet because they're all out there publicly, and knowing that that person really can kind of say whatever he wants to because he kind of has no fear for any backlash, I think it gave more credence to the fact that there are other owners that could potentially jump on that, because he is one of the tent poles when it comes to all the other owners out there. I was shocked that he made them just because it was in a public forum. But then when Roger Goodell basically said, we are waiting for the results of the Mary Jo White report to come out before we make any comments or any statements, that kind of brought everything back. That's the only reason why I'm wondering what else is going to happen after this recent statement from the team.
Right. All right, Ted, stand by. So we're going to bring in Bob Barner now, who is out and about live on the streets this morning. And Bob, a lot of this is still developing, waiting to be confirmed. It's a process. It's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight. But this is catching a lot of people by surprise, even though if you ask a lot of fans who are upset about the way this team has been performing and operating over the last more than a decade, they would say, you know what, this is actually the news we've been waiting to hear.
Yeah, and even if it turns out that perhaps what the Snyders want to do is sell a minority stake in the team, it's something. They would still be in control if they had a majority stake in the franchise. So what you believe with the statements and everything, and the article in Forbes, is that perhaps they are looking to sell the team in its entirety. Joining us is Liz, having a late breakfast here out on Wisconsin Avenue in front of the station. Liz, your husband is pacing over here. He said he didn't think he could hold it together to be on live TV, how he's feeling about this. Delighted, but, frustrated after so many years. How about yourself?
I think this is very good news. The Commanders haven't been great since the Jack Kent Cook years, and I think the fans deserve a great owner so they can have a great team again. We've got a great fan base, and I think it's great news that Snyder's looking to sell the team.
For a while there, you mentioned the old franchise name. Like Dan Snyder once put out a note, he will never change the name of the franchise, and he ultimately did. And he had fairly recently said he will never sell the franchise, and now it looks like he may consider that. When the name changed, whether you liked it or not, was there maybe some thought that perhaps next might be offloading the team in some way?
Hopeful for sure, but I actually didn't think he would let go of the team because he's been pretty stubborn about this over the years.
So identified with the franchise. It's given him stature in the community. Your husband was saying his phone's been blowing up. What are you hearing from fellow fans like yourself, your friends?
We just heard minutes before you walked over that Forbes put out the story that Snyder, I guess, hired Bank of America or one of the
Bank of America, yeah.
Yeah, to sell the team. So I'm assuming everyone is thrilled because I'm not sure everyone was happy with how things were going.
Liz, thank you very much. Her husband, who's back over there, we don't want to put the camera on him, said, you know, he's getting all these emojis from fans. He said he's been frustrated for so long that he just didn't want to be on camera expressing what this teaser might be and what it might lead to. So we understand that. There are probably going to be a lot of fans like that, and ideally and thankfully some like Liz who are happy just to kind of tell you how they're feeling. I frankly don't want to just start popping on people who may or may not be fans, may or may not want to be on TV, but when we get someone else here who's got some things to say, guys, we'll come back on.
Yeah, do your due diligence, Bob. Absolutely. We'll let you go ahead and talk to some other folks off camera, and we're going to switch to a different part of town right now. And Bob said it very perfectly, right? At this point, it's an exploratory process to find out basically what interest is out there, right? And supposedly there have been talks going on behind the scenes. You can only imagine that, right? In any line of business, you always know if somebody's interested in your business or not, or if you want to unload your business. But at this point, even with the word that the Snyders are exploring the sale of the team, like Bob said, you don't know at this point if you want to. You just bought 100% of the team, right? You don't know if you want to give some of that back, have some cash, or if you want to unload 100% of it and say, I have my time, I'm going to make a few $1 billion, on to the next.
And you're talking about a few $1 billion there. Forbes is estimating around $6 billion as far as value, right behind the Dallas Cowboys, who is the most valuable franchise in the NFL. So if he does decide to go in this direction, I mean, it won't be hurting for money. It won't be a lack of money that'll do this. Let's bring in Aisha Khan right now. She's in Northwest D.C. this morning, also getting some reaction from the fans in regards to what may be a potential change in ownership with the Washington Commanders and the football team. Aisha, you there?
Yes, I'm here in the Petworth area. So I have to tell you, I just kind of plopped myself over here and I literally yelled out. I was like, who's a Commanders fan? Who's not? Who wants to talk to me about the potential that Dan Snyder may be selling the team? And this guy, Paul, he was like, what? Is that true? And I said, yeah, it's possible. So you had quite the reaction, Paul. Talk to me about that.
Right. Well, I'll believe it when I see it because, you know, Dan Snyder's held the team back for so long, you know, not investing money in FedEx Field or putting people in charge of the team that, you know, actually know what they're doing. It's just a shame. I want a team I can be proud of, like the Nationals or the Capitals. And you know, we're Washington, D.C. This is the nation's capital. We should have a football team that, you know, is representative of how great our city is. So it's just a shame that they've been what they are for so long. But hopefully, if Dan Snyder sells, you know, it'll be a bright future.
You know, it seems like just when we were getting used to the new name, right? It's like more changes are coming. How are you grasping that?
They should have just stayed the Washington football team. The Commanders is a not great name, but, you know, I'm not the powers that be, so I guess they have some reason, you know, to pick that name, but I would have went for something else.
And the fact that, you know, so many allegations have been surrounding the team as well. Did you already have your mind made up that, man, like, maybe there's no future for this team? I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I mean, it's a shame that, you know, there's been so many scandals with, you know, there was the sexual harassment issues with the cheerleaders and whatnot. That's awful and terrible. You know, whatever else, financial issues that the team's been having. You know, for me, it's just more holes in the boat. I mean, it doesn't change anything. I already kind of felt that the team wasn't what I wanted it to be. So, you know, it didn't really change much of anything. It just made it worse.
And if they do sell, right now they're just exploring. If they do sell, do you think it's a good thing?
It's a good thing. Hopefully the owners get a new stadium for them, one that people want to go to, and fresh blood, new ideas, and, you know, the anywhere but up is all they can do.
I hear you, Paul. I like your perspective. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And guys, just like Bob said, you know, we don't want to just throw the camera and microphone in front of just anybody because you don't know how people are going to be feeling. So we're going to try to talk to some people off camera and get more reaction. I'm sure this is going to be quite the talker around here. Back to you.
No doubt about it, Aisha. Thank you very much. We're going to put up our instant poll question right now. We have a question for you. If you want to weigh in, you can do so online. Very simple question for you today when it comes to our Fox 5 Live instant poll. Will the potential sale change the culture of the Washington Commanders It's actually pretty split right now. 60% of you are saying yes, 40% no. Only a few people have voted, though. We just put the question up. So you can vote by scanning the QR code in the upper right of your screen, or you can vote at fox5dc.com. 50-50 now. You see a change in real time as you vote, or you can download our free Fox 5 app and you can vote there. The question is, do you think that a potential sale would change the culture of the Washington Commanders? Again, exploratory sale. The Snyder's putting out that news just a very short time ago. Some background now on the team. The Snyders, Dan Snyder, bought the team 23 years ago now. In 1999, paid $750 million for the franchise, which is now worth that plus about $5 billion.
Wow, quite an investment.
It's been a nice return on the investment. It is a team that has always been ranked near the highest end of the franchise value list when it comes to publications like Forbes that put these rankings out every year. There we're seeing some of the tweets that are coming in. Let us know your thoughts, by the way, on Twitter or social media, hashtag GoodDayDC, so that we can share them. So that value has gone up about $5 billion since Dan Snyder bought the team 23 years ago. And Wisdom, you know, as we can bring it back here now, you know, when we were talking about Dan Snyder and the reason why he might be choosing now to explore the sale of the team. We've talked about all the investigations that are going on. We've talked about what's happening with Congress. Tailgate Ted obviously reminding us about the report that will be coming down from the NFL. You have to think whether or not you plan to sell the team or not. If there is any doubt in your mind that either other owners or the league could force a sale, at that point, it's a bargain basement. You're going to get lowballed potentially, and you might not get your true value for the team. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening right now, but if you are astute in business and you want to get the most value for the team, you get that value while you're in control of that value.
Strike while the iron's hot. And when you're considering the fact, again, we talk about all these controversies. A lot of people are familiar with those controversies, and the fact that you tried to get a stadium. A lot of teams go through this whole stadium ordeal, and they get those stadiums done within a couple of years. You had the drama with DC and the name. They said you're not coming here with that name, so that was off the table. He's already in Maryland. There was drama around that. He tried to go out to Virginia. That whole thing fell apart. So the whole stadium issue fell apart. Still under investigation by Congress. The season didn't get off to a great start. Attendance is way down. Last year, they were 31st in attendance in all of the NFL. This year so far, they're still at the bottom of the league. Fans have been fed up. The money, the day-to-day money, when your fans stop coming to the game, that's another red flag. And then you had when Irsay, who put his name out there and face out there saying, it may be a good time to move on from this particular owner. That's when you start seeing the red flags. So you start having the financial consequences of your actions. Other owners potentially getting in and saying, okay, enough of the controversy and the nonsense that's bringing this whole league down. In the offseason, Anheuser-Busch, they cut ties with this team, and some of the local sponsors cut ties with this team because of everything that's going on with this investigation. So you're right. You got to strike while the iron's hot. Before all these owners decide, okay, you're going to get out one way or the other, maybe now is a good time to say, you know what, like you said, on my own terms, you can have it. I'm done with it.
Get your max value while you can get it. We'll talk more about some of the challenges that a new owner, if that is indeed where this is headed, might face in just a minute. But first, we want to get back to Bob Barnard. He is in Bethesda now. And listen, if you want to get commentary, you head to the local establishment that's putting the games on TV, Bob.
That's right. We've come to the Barking Dog here on Elm Street, and with us is John McManus, the owner here for 22 years. You kind of don't know, as an owner of the Barking Dog, the Commanders outside of the Dan Snyder era. But you've been around for a while, and I'm sure a long-time fan. John, your reaction to this? You almost bear hugged me when I walked in there.
I did almost bear hug you. I'm very, very happy. It's going to be a great story for the Washington fans. The Commanders are a great organization. I love the team since I was a kid. I grew up in Washington, D.C., going to RFK with my dad. I took my sons. My sons are adamant Commanders fans. And, you know, I think it's time to move on, get a new owner, get a new stadium, and get a new direction for the team. It's been an awesome, awesome franchise for so long, and it's been so sad the last 25 years. And we're ready. We are ready for a new encouraging and hard-fighting football team. That's what we're looking for.
John, can you be a fan of the organization and still not be a fan of Dan Snyder? Because aren't Dan and Tanya, they are the organization, though.
They are, but we were here long before the Snyders bought the team. So the team is Washington, D.C. It's iconic. And RFK would be a great place for the stadium to be relocated. I love that skyline. I love the team. I've always been a Commanders fan through the name change, through the owner's change. But I'm ready. I'm ready for a new owner. I'm ready for a new outlook. I'm ready for a new direction. And I think Washington deserves that.
What's it been like here on game day Sundays with fans who, like yourself, love the franchise, don't like how they've performed over the recent years, and blame it all on the top? Is it kind of a bittersweet fandom that would come to a sports bar rooting on a Sunday afternoon and yet still hating part of the whole equation?
Well, listen, fans are fans. And, you know, there's a lot of regular customers here that might not like me, but they still come to the Barking Dog. And I'm always going to be a Redskins fan. And on Sundays, we do get a lot of Ravens fans here, but we still have a lot of Commanders fans at the Barking Dog. And we love our home team. So we're really looking forward to, you know, a great future for this team, whoever the new owner is.
Hoping this isn't a teaser?
It's probably not a teaser. I would think that the league and the Snyders and most people in the know, certainly smarter than me, know that it's time for a change.
John, I see you've got it on your hat here, NFL. You're a fan. How did you hear the news? Where were you coming back from? You were just telling me a bit ago.
I was coming back from a dentist appointment, and I got a text from my guy group, and they just said Snyder. And that's all it said, and I knew immediately what they meant. It was...
How could you have thought that with the name Snyder and all the news over the last several years that meant, oh my goodness, they're going to sell the team? How did you jump to that conclusion?
There's only one reason I would have gotten that text. That was, and I knew right away. So I'm very, very happy. I can't wait to share the news with the rest of Washingtonians that are excited to see maybe a new direction for the team. And we are very excited at the Barking Dog to potentially have a new direction for the team.
All right, John, thanks for your time. Appreciate it, man.
All right, man. Take
Way to
care
go.
of yourself.
All right, thank you very much. So that's it, guys. You know, we've kind of come down from the station heading to Bethesda Row, but stopped by the Barking Dog, and it's probably a good thing we did. John, again, who's owned this place for 22 years and suffered through this era, is looking to perhaps a better and a brighter day ahead.
Yeah, Snyders have owned the team for 23 years, so they both bought at the same time. I think the appreciation of the football team has gone up just a little bit more than the Barking Dog, but still a great place in Bethesda to enjoy a ball game. Bob, thanks very much. We'll check in with Bob in a few minutes with a little more fan response. I want to get back right now to Super Bowl champion Kyle Arrington and super fan Tailgate Ted. Ted, I want to start with you right now. We talked a little bit about maybe this is a good time to sell the team when you have control over that sale. Not saying that the Snyders would lose control of that, but that's always a risk with the investigations that are going on. But also the challenges potentially for somebody coming in when it comes to not just getting a team, but getting a team and having to place them somewhere else to have a new place to stay. How far along in the process are you hearing as far as the stadium process and how that might be impacted by a sale?
Well, in regards to a stadium process, I mean, Virginia decided this past year, a couple months ago, not to put the stadium commission together. So that has to wait. And I think Bob and some of the others will be able to find that from a political standpoint to actually go up for a vote again. So Virginia is off the table until they can actually get that commission together to actually select on building the stadium. And if I'm not mistaken, Maryland has said that they are only giving money to the Ravens to improve that stadium. They're not actually giving any money from a state perspective to the Commanders. Now, obviously, that can change. It's an election year. Who knows what's going on? And D.C. has said, regardless, they don't want a stadium to go at RFK. D.C. Council wants housing there, and they don't want a stadium. Now, obviously, things could change if someone else were to own the team. This is all speculation at this point. I mean, everybody wants it to go back to RFK. That's the most logical site. But what fans and most people forget is that's not D.C.-owned land. That's federal government land that is leased back to the city. So there's a lot of moving steps that have to happen for a stadium to go back to RFK, the one place where we all want it to be.
It seems like it's just another layer, Ted, for whatever investor might want to come on board to either own part of or all of this organization to have that stadium project looming there. I mean, it's a huge part of the plan. It's not just plug and play.
it's definitely not just plug and play, and there are a lot of outside factors that whoever takes ownership has no control over. There's going to be a lot of lobbying towards those different jurisdictions, and also Congress. Is Congress going to give this new owner a potential chance to have that new stadium built in D.C.? Because you know how Congress feels about Dan Snyder, but not to get political about it again, everyone's saying that a lot of these congressional accusations from Congress were all going to stop once everything flipped from the Democrats to the Republicans, because the Republicans weren't going to want to pursue all of those things with Dan Snyder. So there's just a lot of moving parts that whoever is owner just really isn't going to have complete control over. All they're going to have control over is the lease at FedEx Field in PG County until, I believe, 2027.
All right, so let's while we discuss this further, let's bring in Guy Lambert and get some more perspective on.
I think we want to jump to Kyle real quick.
Kyle Arrington, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Kyle, this is you're learning more.
No,
and more.
guys, I would. What's
that? Go ahead and weigh in. I mean, you've been hearing different perspectives, different conversations. We've been hearing from fans, some of what they have to say. You're bringing the former player perspective, but also just, somebody who's lived that football life. Now that you hear more and more about it, what are your thoughts?
I guess I'll start with Dan Snyder himself. Ownership itself has definitely been the problem child or black sheep of the league for quite a while now. And I guess I'll tell you like this: never go to battle with someone who has a bigger war chest than you. So the minute I feel like when Dan Snyder came out with the blackmail, as far as the other owners are concerned, it's not like he's just going to walk Jerry Jones or Israel, whomever the case may be. Like, he alienated a lot of those owners. So collectively, who knows? Like I said, speculatory. They might have got together, and you see how fast this, I guess this materialized overnight as far as their options and looking towards selling the team. And one thing, I guess I'll leave it at this as well, from a player's perspective, or just someone inside the locker room. It's especially with the tough game coming up this week, versus a great football team in Minnesota. It's something that is called hidden yardage. Every week you look at where can I get an advantage? If you're a player, if you're a coach, where can we find an advantage to win these football games? And part of that is when it comes down to preparation. And if you're trying to prepare for a game of this magnitude, especially they won 3 games in a row, back to 500, got another great football team coming in. This is a measuring stick kind of game for you as well. And so if you're any talking points taking away from, if you're a player talking to the media, okay, now instead of talking about this upcoming game, you're talking about the breaking news. I mean, it's all a distraction, and it just takes away for the preparedness and the readiness with the big game coming up.
Kyle, do you think that? And listen, we don't know where everything is coming from at this point. We don't know how serious Dan Snyder is about this, as to whether it's unloading part of the team, unloading the whole team. Dan Snyder's a smart guy. We've all watched Survivor. We know about alliances. We know what happens behind the scenes, and there's always a twist, right? You mentioned the other owners coming out and how big of a piece that may be. There's always the chance that Dan Snyder, as he said, I will never sell the team, may have always wanted to sell the team, to distance himself from it and saying, look, this is a good time for me to unload this team. But by doing all of this now and hearing from other owners and everybody else, that just puts more attention on it. It actually makes his job easier now to sell the team. Do you think he was just playing everybody all along?
I'd say it sounds like Dan Snyder and Kanye had the same business manager. I don't know. But I mean, hey, it could work in his favor, just between, obviously he knows everything that's going on behind the scenes more so than we do, what's going to potentially come down from Congress and the allegations and the scandal. So who knows? Maybe this is what he wanted all along.
All right, Kyle Arrington joining us. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it is interesting. One of the things that we talked about, the attendance and the fan disappointment. Let's bring in Guy Lambert now while we talk about this, fans and the disappointment and the attendance going down. Think about this from a fan perspective as well. So you're dealing with all of this now as the team starts to turn things around, as Kyle Arrington just mentioned. Since Dan Snyder took over this team, just from a leadership and coaching perspective, Norv Turner, coaches that have been in this job since he took over the team, Norv Turner, Terry Robisky, Marty Schottenheimer, Steve Spurrier, Joe Gibbs, Jim Zorn, Mike Shanahan, Jay Gruden. That's before Ron Rivera got here. So this has been consistent, the fact that you've had all of these people come in here and nobody has been able to successfully turn this franchise around. And a lot of fans are fed up, and they're saying, okay, well, the reason these people have come in here and they don't stay long and they can't turn it around, is because it starts at the top with bad ownership. Guy Lambert, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, Wisdom, you hit the nail right on the head. It does all start with the top. You just made mention of several of the owners. Well, we're not even talking about quarterbacks. To my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Commanders have had the most starting quarterbacks over the last decade or so. To me, this was somewhat inevitable. Dan Snyder hit a wall, and we discussed this on the pregame show a couple of weeks ago right here on Fox 5. That is, one, in order to build a new stadium, Dan Snyder needed the approval of all the other owners. You know, you have to put up money in order to make or build a stadium, if you will. He did not have enough money to do it by himself. Hence, the owners would collectively have to come together and say, you know what, we're going to give him a high five, we're going to give him an approval and allow him and allocate the monies, if you will, in order to build that stadium. I think what's more important, what we probably have to look at here is that Dan Snyder ultimately is a businessman. And I think what he was most fearful of happens to be these sexual allegations. Now, we've heard about them. We kind of know about them, but they have not been released in detail. And I think that's what he was concerned about. Had the owners continue to push forward and say, you know what, we can't get you just to say goodbye, but we can get Congress to release those details. And if those details are released, let's say he then decides to sell the team, but then his name is marred and he would have a hard time moving on to another business, something that I'm pretty sure he's going to want to do. Ultimately, in business, you buy a business to sell a business. Dan Snyder purchased the Washington Commanders for $750 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the team is now worth about $7 billion. Ultimately, he's a winner and he keeps his reputation.
Yeah, close to that $7 billion mark, and you got to think any bidding would start there and only go up. Guy, I'm glad that you mentioned the starting quarterback rotation and didn't let Wisdom, because we wouldn't have time to go through that entire list. Consistently inconsistent is how I've always referred to this organization and the process it's gone. Real quick, Guy, while we have you, I think you hit the nail on the head on a lot of those instances, and those investigations would not necessarily go away just because he sold the team. Keep that in mind. Sure. But like you said, his reputation as an owner, he could potentially save that. But I want to ask you, before we move on to our next guest, you have not just talked about this organization and team for a long time. You are a fan, and you have talked with many fans. What do you hear? What do you think about, if there is a change at the top, what that could do for the fan perspective, the fan temperature here in the DMV?
Well, of course, obviously, you know, the fans would be happy. I've said this time and time again, and this is me speaking personally. Dan Snyder doesn't own the team as far as I'm concerned. I'm a fan for life. He just happens to be the owner for now. So I want folks to understand it. Whoever comes up next, they will be the owner, but I am a fan for life. And so I will always support the team. A recent study released this week actually stated that Commanders fans are the most loyal in all of the NFL. I think it just proves, you know, justifies what I just said to state that no matter who owns it, I will be a fan. And I think a lot of fans will now be rejuvenated to know that it will be in better hands.
Some would echo that argument, Guy, by saying in 23 years, if you are still a fan, you are among the most loyal and patient.
Yeah, you are very hardcore fan. So. Because you think about it like this as well, throwing some more numbers out at you. Since Dan Snyder took over this team in 1999, they are among the bottom 5 when it comes to winning percentages, and only 4 other teams have the lower number of playoff wins since he took over this team. So you got to be loyal to stick with something like that.
It's been tough. Throw all the numbers out there, the fans, and the fact that less fans can go to the stadium because they keep taking seats away to make it look more full because the fans had not been going. Hopefully that all changes. Guy, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us. Want to switch on over to Doug Eldridge right now, and Doug's a frequent guest of our show. Doug, with experience as an agent representing athletes, with experience in crisis management from the business perspective. When we talk about a potential sale, Doug, for this organization, which you know very well, there are a lot of moving parts here that you might not have with another NFL being told. That being the baggage of what's been happening behind the scenes, that being a new stadium that's needed one way or another within the next 5 years. Where do you even start with this when you're looking at a financial transaction like this?
Assets and liabilities, you know, and on the balance sheet, the assets speak for themselves. Sports franchises across the landscape are at an all-time historic high right now, irrespective of sport. But now look at the liability side of the ledger, and this franchise certainly has liabilities, lingering liabilities, both in the court of law and in the court of public opinion. And that brings down the overarching value. There's no question that Mr. Snyder has gotten an exponential return on his initial investment. I mean, to the tune of, math nerds jump in here. The point is you are tickling $6 billion with a B dollars, which is unheard of. A couple of years ago, the Cowboys weren't even worth that. So this franchise has hit a crescendo. And if in the context of buy low, sell high, this would be the time to do it if, in fact, that's what they're going to do.
Doug, from a people perspective, billionaires have egos, right? I mean, they can make more money. The rich can get richer, but you want to go out big. You want to save your name. You don't want to be looked at in a negative connotation that the money doesn't cover all of that when you carry the ego of many billionaires. Is there any way Dan Snyder can come out on top here, aside from financially?
Financially, there's no question that he will. Whether he sells this year, next year, 20 years from now, who knows? This could all be a stunt, for lack of a better word. I doubt that it is, because I think the timing is right, both in terms of the circling wagons, no pun intended, as well as the fact that, as I mentioned a moment ago, the market's at an all-time high. Like, he's not going to get a better deal, presumably. In terms of how to salvage this, you don't. You cut off the arm to save the body. And what you're looking at here is Dan Snyder, have the opportunity to push all my chips in, get out at an exponent of what I got in for, reset the market for franchises in North America, and out of sight, out of mind. I don't know that this congressional report will have the stinging import that it would if he were no longer the owner. That doesn't mean that he escapes potential legal liability, but again, in the court of public opinion, for which he is losing round after round after round, if this were a boxing match, it would have long since been called. It's an opportunity to throw in the towel and leave a champion, even if it's only in your mind. Right. But I should say, as you mentioned in the lead-in, that I've had the privilege to work with the team both on the field and off the field, and it's staffed with great people that are working really hard, that have been through a heck of a lot to try and propel this franchise forward. As as Guy said a moment ago, these fans are unbelievably loyal, and I would say they have endurance, because this has been a long uphill race to be a Washington fan, and they've stood by it. There's a lot of good people within that building that are working really hard to try and put a good product on the field. And in the community, it's been a hard couple of years, and I think it's really taken a toll.
Yeah. Not a bad fallback plan if you can turn about a $6 billion profit. Right. Doug Eldridge, thanks very much. Good to talk to you this morning.
All right, let's bring in Isha Khan back. She's back on the streets right now with some fans. And let's not forget about, we keep talking about all the drama. And one of the major, parts of the drama that happened during the past couple of years has been with his right-hand man, who was his right-hand man, Bruce Allen. He got caught up in that whole John Gruden racist email thing, and that propelled more drama in the direction of this football team. So now here we are with Dan Snyder, the owner, potentially moving on from the franchise. Not there yet, but potentially moving on. Aisha, you're out with some more fans this morning.
Good morning. Yeah, we're in the Petworth area, and let me tell you, we are definitely getting some very excited fans who are like, man, this is a good thing that they're selling the team. And I've got Andrew right here. He walked up right up to me. Look, he's already wearing the jersey. I knew I was going to find somebody who's going to have the jersey on. Andrew, thank you for stopping by. You've got a lot to say. Why don't we start with when you were like, this is going to be a celebration tonight?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be celebration hard tonight. I'm going to go ahead and start pouring drinks on me, y'all. I just feel, it's a good move. It's a good move. It's just like, I feel like we've been held hostage all these years, Like I say, I'm looking forward to it. It's not a done deal yet. Hey, but the ball got to get rolling somewhere. I've been a lifelong fan for years. I grew up here in the area. I done been to all the games away and here, so I want to go there and enjoy it.
You kept saying that to you it feels like that the team has been contaminated or tainted in some way. What did you mean by that?
I mean by contaminated and tainted because he took away the joy of the fans. And I feel that he made it more personal. It was more like a cash cow to him instead of, the fans. We, even though they're the team, we built this brand, for what he got it for and what it is now. That's based on the fans. He hasn't kept up the stadium. How the stadium looks now. You can't have a good experience now. So I think new ownership, a new direction, we'd be off to the races.
I think also the feeling that I've been getting, and of course I'm a longtime Washingtonian myself, is just talking to friends and family and people like yourself that there was some type of like a disservice that was done to the fans for what you said a long time. Agree or disagree?
Oh, agree. Definitely agree. definitely a disservice. I don't think, the fans, when everybody speaks the same tune, you have to listen. I can see a few people saying it, but all the fans are speaking the same tune, so you got to listen to the song.
All right, Andrew, I can talk to you all day. All right, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you talking to us, guys. I'm going to throw it back to you.
Aisha, thank you very much. Getting the pulse of the people in Petworth this morning. A couple of minutes before the top of the hour, we want to bring in James Darr. We heard from James earlier this morning, and this was one of the more bizarre stories of the week. James' father recently passed away, and this was one of the more eye-catching obituaries. James, good to see you this morning. James's dad, longtime fan of the team, lifelong fan of the team. But in the obituary, you put in your dad's words that he wished for nothing more than for Dan Snyder to sell the Washington Commanders. Is he speaking from beyond the grave here? Because if so, I feel like we need a James Darr Field at whatever the new stadium may be.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's really been incredible. The article and the story last night went around and everybody I knew saw it and everybody said, your dad's a legend, you're a legend. And then this breaks this morning and my phone goes crazy. If you don't believe, you're like, what other explanation is there? Maybe it's just a big coincidence. I don't know.
Well, listen, James, first of all, condolences for your loss. Second of all, what do you think your dad's reaction would be today?
I think it would just be relief. It's just like a huge weight off your shoulders, this thing that's been nagging at the city, at the fan base for over a decade, knowing that this was not going to work out for Dan and just wasn't going to be a winner. To just know that there's a bright future ahead.
Now, moving on, if this is the case, if this is going to actually happen, what does this do for you and your family as far as being fans of this team? Because a lot of people that we've been talking to this morning, obviously they're excited because I'm being honest, they're kind of tired of the Snyder regime here.
Yeah, it definitely renews the love. The love never goes away, but it makes you think, well, maybe I'll try to go to a game or I'll go to an away game or buy this merch or have your children wear the team apparel, that you really might not have before, because what is there to root for,
James, we talked about Washington fans being some of the most loyal in the league, and I think your dad is a perfect example of that. Not loving the ownership, the management potentially, but still loving the team itself. Did that change? Did you see that change in him over the last 20 years or so?
Absolutely. It was, we grew up on football and some of the great years in the Joe Gibbs era and all of that. And that was the number one sport, in the house. It was the most important season. And as time went on, it became a little, less and less important because you had a little less hope and you focused on the other teams and the other owners that you thought were doing the right things, for the fans and for the community and to put a winner on the field. So it would be great to have that back again.
James, we appreciate you joining us. Again, condolences for the loss of your father, but posthumously, maybe doing some amazing work here for so many fans across the DMV. Thank you, James, for joining us this morning.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we want to get out to Bob Barnard right now, check back in with him one last time and see what more he's found out there with the fans in the streets. Bob?
Yeah, Wisdom and Steve, we're here in Bethesda Row with Marita. Marita, your reaction, lifelong Washingtonian, the chance that the Snyders may sell the Washington Commanders.
He should sell. Fans aren't happy with Snyder, and fans aren't happy with the stadium. He should sell.
And how about all the allegations surrounding him, misconduct and all that kind of
thing? It brings a negative view on the team, so it's time for him to go.
And on the phone here is Sharon. Marita and Sharon were talking. Sharon's a crazy Commanders fan. Sharon, your reaction to this news today?
I am so happy he needs to go. If you look at the stadium, what is he doing with all the money? He's been pocketing the money. The team looks, the stadium is raggedy. The team is not on its best. We are trying to win for a change. We need to win, and he's not putting any money into his players. We have some good players, I give it that. But what about our quarterback?
I hear you. Sharon.
If Heineke goes out, what then?
Yeah, what's the backup for Taylor Heineke? Good point. Marita, thank you. Sharon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's conversations all over the place. We've been seeing people. We stopped Marita. She said, I'm on my phone with Sharon, who's a crazy fan. And maybe there's some hope, guys, today. Maybe there's a hope for a little different future.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Bob, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Please
Bob.
thank all the fans out there who have been joining us for the last hour or so as
And Sam Howell, Steve, is the backup.
Sam Howell's, he's a rookie, right? Unlimited potential. And how many times have we been down that road in the last 23 years?
You know I got the list.
Well,
we just don't have time.
We'll add more to it eventually. We know that's a guarantee. Please hit us up on Twitter or social media, #GoodDayDC. Let us know what you think about the prospect of the Snyders selling the Washington Commanders. No matter what happens, this is a team that is in danger. While there are loyal fans, is in danger of losing more fans. And we saw some of that throughout the name change. Obviously, if the stadium moves to Virginia, there are people in Maryland, they're just like, I'm out. I'll be a Ravens fan. I'm fine with that. You don't want to lose that as an organization. So if you do have a new owner come in, damage control, number one. Keep those fans that you have. Try to lure more back in. But just to summarize what we've been dealing with, the Snyders putting out news earlier this morning that they have, in fact, retained Bank of America Securities to explore the sale of the Washington Commanders. Don't know if that's a partial sale or 100% of the sale, but it's the first time publicly that we have heard the Snyders acknowledge that possibility.
Right, and the fact that this is on the table has a lot of fans who have been disenchanted with this franchise since 1999. They're galvanized and they're saying this could be a good day, could be the beginning of something new, start over, if you will. Change the energy of this team and move forward in a different direction, maybe get a new stadium down the road. I mean, it's all sun and roses.
We got a lot to sift through, but stay with us here on Fox 5. You know Joe Claire's got a thing to say about this.
Absolutely.
That'll be on the DMV zone starting at 3 o'clock and then news starting for 4 on. We'll see you then. Thanks for being with us this morning.
And she is in our kitchen serving up a healthy dose of inspiration. She's also going to show us 3 healthy recipes that you can